Hundreds of suspected violent gang members are at a prison in El Salvador now after they were deported over the weekend. The president invoked an 18th century law. It's the Aliens Enemy Act that rarely used but covers wartime or invasions. A federal judge tried to block those flights, but the administration saying the flights were already outside of U.S. airspace. A lot to get to here. Let's bring in our friend John Gihon, a board-certified immigration attorney. John, always good to see you. Good morning.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan. Good to be here.
So a lot to get to. Before we get into the details, let's start with the basics. What rights does someone that may have entered the country illegally have compared to a U.S. citizen?
Typically speaking, people who are in the country without status have a variety of different rights to apply for immigration relief. And if they are facing deportation from the country, they have a right to see an immigration judge. If they're detained, they have a right to seek a bond. U.S. citizens obviously don't have to worry about any of this. They cannot be detained and deported from the country.
So as we set up, we know the White House deporting the individuals. They cited invasion or predatory incursion with the suspected Venezuelan gang members. Now, the district court tried to stop this. How do you see this playing out? What's your reaction?
Well, this is a giant power struggle between two branches of government, from the judiciary, who's telling the government and President Trump, whoa, you got to slow down here for a second. You're invoking this act, which has only been used 3 times in U.S. history and always during wartime. And you're trying to deport people and short circuit the immigration court system. And if you're going to do that, we need to explore it and make sure you're allowed to do it. And so we're going to have a huge fight in between the two branches of government. And we're going to have judges who are going to try to stop the enforcement of this law and the invocation of the law by the president. And we're going to have the president hopefully following court orders to let this play out in the court system so that everyone can see whether or not it is in fact legal for him to do this.
Yeah, it really does set up, John, this battle of the branches. So the big question is what's next? Obviously, you mentioned the Supreme Court. It's likely this is heading there. But what about these future flights? Where will everything stand right now?
We haven't seen any reports of any other flights leaving from the United States with anyone from Venezuela on these flights, because it's important to remember when the president invoked this act, it's only for Venezuelan individuals who have been identified as being part of the Tren de Aragua gang and don't have green cards and are not U.S. citizens already. So those are the only individuals who seem to be affected by this right now. And as long as those individuals are not being removed from the country summarily, then the president hasn't violated the court order. And so we haven't seen any other violations or any other removals at this point, but we likely are to see them in the future if this is in fact found to be lawful.
Yeah, John, you're an immigration attorney, so you've seen this. I mean, this goes back a couple of years ago when there was a battle over flights coming into Florida. Where is this playing out? What are you seeing maybe that you didn't see just a couple of years ago?
Well, I'm on my way to court in a few minutes here, Ryan, to help people try not to get deported from the country. Our phones are ringing off the hook. People are being detained in Florida and across the country, left and right, who were not being detained 6 months ago. The types of cases where people are being put in court have greatly expanded. Number of people being detained who don't have lawful status is being greatly expanded. And the number of people who have green cards who are being detained and facing deportation has greatly expanded under President Trump. So we've seen an explosion in immigration enforcement just in Florida and across the country since January 20th.
And a lot of this, as you said, is going to play out in the courts. Got to leave it there. John, appreciate your insight this morning.
Thank you, Ryan.